All right, we're officially recording. Thank you all so much for joining us for another study group. This one's actually part 2 of hyperautomation exam prep, but we also are going to include some IDP fun here also. Kiru is my co-host. So Kiru, welcome. I'm glad you're here with us, and introduce yourself. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, so hey everyone, I guess only Hadi because you both know me anyways. So my name is Kiru, and I work at a German consulting company, and my expertise is process automation with MuleSoft end to end. And yeah, I've been with MuleSoft, working with MuleSoft for the last 3 years now. And yeah, I'm really passionate about hyperautomation. And also, thanks a lot, Diane, for giving me this opportunity to co-host this session with you.
Glad to have you
Yeah,
here with me
so
for sure. And we're also working and collaborating in the trenches on a front line for projects, right? So we've kind of
yep.
gotten our hands a little messy in hyperautomation as well as intelligent document processing. So I'm going to take a moment for the first few slides, really to kind of go over, some of the tools, the tool sets for this, because I know sometimes someone might be coming in really not, very familiar with the tools as far as that's concerned. But we also want to spend some time, really looking at the newest things that are out, the intelligent document processing, that are all part of this suite that we have. So, and let me go ahead and move us forward with our next slide on things. But let me jump over some of these to where we can actually dive into some of the exam preparedness. Um, Centers around really knowing the objectives, doing the practice exam, which has changed now, and really identify your knowledge gaps. This is, I always lead into preparation for this exam by saying that it's a hard one. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's really kind of one of those challenging exams because you're covering so many different product lines. And along those lines, it is a matter of knowing, as far as the exam is concerned, what product to use when. That's a big part of this exam. So we're going to go through some of these. Hey, Francis, welcome. Good to see you with us.
Hello.
It's great to see you.
I've got the exam next Friday.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, we'll be sure to give you our best tips, So in this category, I know for me, I'm going to share, some of my experiences that there are many ways to get things done. We can create a flow in Mule that's going to do similar things that could be done in Salesforce as well. So looking at and approaching a solution holistically, it would be a matter of key factors. And so for how that equates over to the exam is really reading the wording in the exam and determining, they're going to give you hints. They're going to give you hints and things like, what tool would you use in these cases? And when it's looking at, buzzwords like without the help of IT. Okay, so then it's not going to be something that's very technical that's going to require, someone to be, a MuleSoft developer to manage certain things. So you've got to watch those buzzwords that are going to kind of point you in a certain direction. And, you start seeing other things mentioned, like they're provisioning, they're using ServiceNow. Okay. And that user is provisioned in Salesforce. So now you've got the players. Okay. So you have a Salesforce org, you have, no help from IT. Those are all those things you got to wrap your head around when you're sitting there for that exam. And then, you're going to lean into the solution. Now, who wants to take a guess at what the answer for this one would be? What do you think? Just come off mute. Tell me what you think. What do you think it should be?
I'm between C and D.
Between C
Yeah,
and
I'm
D.
C and D.
C and D.
I'm gonna go with D.
Going with D. Who said I'm going with D? Was that you, Hardy? Yeah. Okay. Good call. It is D. The correct answer is D. And you know, a lot of us don't use Composer. If we're really working on solutions, sometimes we overlook Composer, but this is where having an understanding of all of the tool sets for this exam is going to help you succeed as far as the exam is concerned. And so as we are, you know, identifying what the literature is saying about each of these components, that's going to be your strength going into the exam. Now, many of us, I know, Francis, I know you're very versed in MuleSoft. Hardy, I don't know your skill set. Are you where would you say your strength is?
I've done a lot of integration work. I've been in the MuleSoft world for a fair bit, so I'm pretty well versed in MuleSoft.
Okay, so as we approach this, and we know, like we're pretty strong in certain areas, but where we're lacking in those different areas are going to be, you know, some of the gaps that you might need to center around to strengthen in those areas. Kiru, what would you say, you know, in this particular topic is you know, some advice that you would give surrounding approaching the exam?
Yeah, I think Diane mentioned it already. This is really not an easy one because it involves really two different environments, Salesforce and MuleSoft. Yeah, and different products within these two environments. So it covers a really, really vast set of topics. So my advice would be to do as much hands-on as possible because that is the best way to keep things in mind. And they're almost for everything except I think the Composer we have a trial version where you can get your hands dirty and then just try out as much as possible. So this would be my advice. And yeah, and also like Diane mentioned, most of the questions here are about which tools to use when. So here is where the concentration must be as to what use cases are suitable for what tools. So, for example, the question that Diane showed, there was Salesforce involved, yeah, but Flow is not the right answer because it also involves ServiceNow, and ServiceNow is one of the out-of-the-box connectors that we have in Composer. So this is also very crucial to know which, for example, are the connectors that are supported in Composer. So if you see one of those, then your mind immediately goes to, okay, I can use Composer for that one. So this is also like super crucial, and that is why it is very useful to get familiar and more hands-on on many of the tools that are involved in the exams.
Great call. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we learn different ways, we retain knowledge different ways, but I am so with you on the hands-on because when you have not just, you know, approaching it from the point of memorization, but if you have it from a point of, oh yeah, I saw that connector, you know, and again, they're saying, you know, when we look at pro code versus low code, you know, that low code solution is going to lead us to Composer, but definitely seeing the connectors and getting in here and working with the different connectors and how they really streamline that as far as yeah. Good call. Good call. Yes. Yes. And be well rested before you take the exam. That's with any exam, of course. This is a product comparison list. I need to get this updated from the friend who sent it to me, who gave it to me. And this is something really when I coached a lot of the solution engineers for passing this certification. I emphasized a lot of this because once again, it's the right tool for the right job, but at the same time, we need to know the capabilities, you know, the capabilities of each of the tools. And so this one helps in some ways of really knowing the inability, you know, of Salesforce or orchestration versus the ability that you would have on any point platform and RPA. So again, there's going to be a lot of overlap on some of that for even solutioning, but as far as exam relevance, they're going to give you some hints and lead you into a certain direction. But again, it's a little bit challenging to really iron out exactly, with an exam. First of all, you got a clock that's ticking. You want to make sure you pass, but then you want to try to, really filter what you're reading as far as that's concerned. So I will share some of these with you. I think I've shared them out before as well, if anyone's interested in having those. So in the category of, high level, if you're very versed in MuleSoft, that is great. That is going to be a strength for you going into this exam, because there are going to be questions centered around API-led connectivity. What are the tiers? You're going to see a lot of questions on experience, process, and system APIs. But the things that we may not consider to be part of the, this exam from the Mule side are also too that in order to use these assets we create on the MuleSoft side, we've got to have TLS context configured. And that's through Secrets Manager. In the course, we do that in the Secrets Manager. And then also using the connected app. So be sure that if you're really good with MuleSoft, that's great. Get some time hands-on with Secret Manager and also using the connected app as far as that's concerned. Kiru, thoughts and suggestions on the MuleSoft side of the house?
Yes, I think nothing more to add much than what you already mentioned, Diane. So MuleSoft, it covers Anypoint Composer and RPA really extensively. And with the Composer, it is pretty simple, I think, to just get a hands-on, just know what is possible. And what is also super helpful is the Trailhead that is available for free. So you can just go through the full Trailhead. And it covers, I think, almost all the tools really well, with also hands-ons every now and then for some of the exercises. So this also really helps for the exam. And Anypoint platform, in Anypoint Studio, you can download for free, and then you can also try out. That is also very useful. Composer and RPA, you can watch as many videos as possible to try to get familiar with the tools. And I think Ryan also hosts a paid version of RPA if you want to try out there as well. So this, I would say, is super important from the MuleSoft side of the platform.
Yeah, Hardy, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And yes, too, we do have with Integration Quest, we have purchased a platform. And this platform is equipped with the automation pieces. And this is not a promo. This is to help you. We have it priced very reasonably for people to utilize this. So reach out to us in regards to that. And if you currently are watching this video and you do already have, I'm typing. Can you tell I'm typing when I'm trying to talk? You do already have a subscription for this. Please let us know how that's working for you. If you need any help with any of that to further, what is it doing that? To further your experience on that, be sure to let us know. I'm trying to log in, but it's giving me a hard time. I'll work on that as we're talking about other things, because I did want to. Oh, I know why. One second. Because I did want to give you a view of what that looks like. Hey.
And also maybe to add on in the trail mix that we have for the Hyperautomation, we also have a practice exam, which is exactly in the format of the final exam. So you can try out this one to get an idea of how the questions are going to be, how much percentage is the weightage for each topic. This practice exam here in the trail mix is really useful. I can search in the background also if I can find the link for this and share with you.
Yeah.
Has anybody used it and you noticed if the answer key has the same problem as the other past practice exams where all the answers are the same?
And I think I found one that was not accurate.
Okay. Well, what I do with that, I just did it with a mentee yesterday. If the practice exams have all the answers as letter A, all you have to do is feed them into an LLM and ask it to randomize the answers. So then you actually can get legitimate practice.
Yeah. Well, and you know what I like, and I encourage people to use that practice exam for. And Kiru, if you have it clicked or up or here, let me click on that. Here we go. Thank you, Hardy.
I have it
Yeah.
already. Perfect.
Yeah, and there is an exam overview. Yeah, this is really good, because most importantly with that practice exam is look at the structure of the question, the content, of course, but how those questions are going to be asked, so that when you go for the real exam, it's going to have some similarity. You're going to find, this was bizarre to me because Ryan and I have helped write some of the exams. Well, Francis, I think you were on that too, weren't you? Did you help write some of the exams?
No, I've never helped write any exams. I've just taken them.
Okay. So what Ryan and I, we were really coached and groomed on how to ask questions right. They would not let us be tricky. And this particular exam, there were quite a few of the practice exam questions on the real exam, but the answers were, the question was rewritten to where it was a different answer. So do not memorize the question and go, oh, I know that one's going to be a system API, or I know that one's going to be this. Read it carefully. Don't be caught by that, so that you make sure that you're not tricked by that one. So wanted to be sure to give a call out on that, because our practice exams that we wrote were so different from the real exam. They were a different category altogether, but you're going to see some of these populated over into the real exam. But yeah, this is great. This is great to help you looking at the different topics versus the, let me do the overview real quick, because this one will show about the objectives. So when you come down here, you'll see towards the bottom, the exam outline and the objectives. And these are the objectives. And you can see how they're weighted. Like this one is 20% of the exam. This one's 12%, etc. So you would want to come and look at the specifics and then drill down and study, whether it be through, like Kiru was saying, whether it be through a trailhead or whether you get hands-on with, using the product. A lot of it is, where you can do a trial account, Salesforce flow, orchestration, chatbot there is, I think, 1 or 2 questions on the exam with the chatbot. So you do want to make sure you cover that. And so in those regards, the, we want to, there's some free ways of doing those. The biggest ones you can't, though, are going to be the elements that are in RPA and in Composer. Okay. So, but our account has, where you can, access that. But again, so that's on the MuleSoft side. As we slip over into the Salesforce side, there are some integration pieces. Now, there are questions around the integration pieces, like the, from the Salesforce org, creating the relationship with the MuleSoft services. And that also, these areas right here are going to be, on that exam. What happens when you log in from Salesforce to your Anypoint platform? Okay, so there's external credentials created and the name credentials. And then also the permission set. That's an automatic setup. Okay. So be sure you're very familiar with what happens here. Now, this has already changed. Kiru, you want to share how some of this has already changed?
Yep, I last week set up this Einstein for my Anypoint and had to do this setup. So yeah, this is now, I think, completely different. So we have to now connect both Anypoint and Salesforce. we don't have to create the name credentials and anything. It's all automatic and happens automatically in the background. So we just have to log into our AnyPoint from Salesforce, and everything happens automatically in the background.
Yeah.
And then we can enable which services, like Diana is showing here. We can choose which services we want to enable for our AnyPoint org from Salesforce. For example, like Einstein, and also publishing of these invocable actions. We can choose here, and then once this is done, we can just access Einstein in AnyPoint, using which we can perform the intelligent document processing.
Yeah. So they are now, as far as the exam's concerned, I think that you will still be responsible for the understanding of this, but it's always constantly changing. So some of the new things that have already changed and had an impact on this is that a lot of it is automatic. The MuleSoft service is automatic. And so you may have questions surrounding what are they? What do they mean? And I have to say they're probably a little slow to update the exam. So Francis, I would anticipate that you're going to see some of these questions still there as far as having to be responsible for some of, manually setting some of these up. But, I think they approach it from a higher level where it is considered to be a MuleSoft service. And so all of these features are part of the integration pieces that happen between Salesforce and MuleSoft, as far as that's concerned. So in regards to that, there is the APIs that you can select as your MuleSoft service. And then what happens? Tell Keeper what happens when you do make this integration piece as an API coming in, the benefits of that.
When you have when you connect MuleSoft and Salesforce, and when you give permissions to access one of the MuleSoft APIs in Salesforce, then you can use the API as a service in, for example, a flow or a flow orchestration, for example, so that you can because you might not, you might also want to use external services which are then connected only with the MuleSoft connector, which are not available in Salesforce. So for this purpose, this integration between MuleSoft and Salesforce is like super useful to from the MuleSoft side to expose the reusable resources as APIs, and from the Salesforce side to kind of connect to these reusable resources and to build your automation using flow and flow orchestration.
Yeah. Brings it right on in there into the Salesforce org. Yeah. Creating an Apex class for those of you that are deeper into Salesforce and understand all those components, so that there are, it's already within the Salesforce org as it is. So, great. All right. There was Composer. We already showed that. Transitioning over into RPA. And the life cycle of RPA. I custom made this slide to really help everyone to remember what is used at each phases of the life cycle of RPA. So if we're looking at that, if you are not familiar with, not that one, let me grab AnyPoint. There we go. So the AnyPoint platform, as we are on the home page here, this is, like I said, an automation SKU. It's kind of a starter automation. So we have RPA Manager in here. And as we launch into this, then we have that dashboard to start building out robotic process automation that's going to be managing any of the tasks that are needed to interact with either a website or documentation or anything that is any integration that does not have an API associated with it. I wonder why that's taking so long. Come on. But go ahead.
RPA is mainly, RPA is mainly used as a last resort of automation when you do not have, for example, any other means of connecting to the system except, using or mimicking a user how he would access the system. For example, clicking a button or typing something on his keyboard, for example. So this is mainly used for legacy systems as a last resort of automation when there is no other means of connecting to the system except with RPA.
Mm-hmm. And it's misbehaving and not loading yet. I'll show it to you once it should load. It should load. But mostly to give you an overview. So yes, it's kind of like if you can't do it any other way than way, in which we want to approach it. So what the dashboard would look like if I brought it up. And there's many different stages of this life cycle. I'm not going to spend a lot of time deeper into this, but there is once you actually start interacting with the bot and you go into or I should say, building it out of how you want it to behave, what you want it to do, it actually will be an asset that you will be able to utilize in your automation at large. So can you recall, Kiru, like exam relevant things in regards to some of this?
With regards to RPA, yes. So the important stuff is you need to remember the different life cycle phases that I showed already: the evaluation phase, the automation phase, the production phase, and so on. And what is also really important is they will ask maybe also a little bit about scheduling the bots automatically. That is also super important. And then what else? So testing, that is also part of the syllabus. How do you test something that you build with RPA, right? So that is also something that they might ask. And other than that, mostly it is if you see the keyword legacy, then you can just choose RPA without thinking too much about it, because that is the that is a trick keyword, so to say, and you can just go for it. And when you also see that it's an old system, it doesn't have any API connectivity and so on as keywords in the question, then just go for RPA. And also to remember is RPA bots, and that is also true for other parts of the platform like Composer and Anypoint. All of these interact with each other. So it need not be a standalone solution. For example, if you build something with an RPA bot, you can call the RPA bot from an Anypoint flow, right? So the idea is that using a combination of all these tools, you can automate a process 100% end to end. So, for example, if you have a system that can be easily automated with API connectivity, then you do it with Anypoint. But if you have also in the same process, the last step is you connect to a system which is legacy without any other means of connectivity, then you automate that with an RPA bot, and you call the RPA bot from the rest of the process that you automated in your Mule app. So this is also super important, this interconnectivity between the components. Yeah, that is also something that they might focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly for Composer, you can either schedule a Composer flow to run every now and then, or you can also invoke it from any other endpoint, from an RPA bot or from an Anypoint Mule application.
Good point. Good point about Composer. Let me go back to Anypoint platform to show some of that too, because that's something also that, as you say, within Composer, if we have I think I have a test flow here, that it is, the scheduling. You can trigger this as a trigger or invocable. So there's various things. And then in some of the connections here, when you go into system action, there are a lot of your connections here, a basic HTTP request, or you can also bring in some of your assets from Exchange and utilize that in Composer as well. But I brought up a Anypoint code builder or RPA code builder, I'm sorry, and was running this through to kind of give you an idea of how the bot will work. Once you program it and configure it, then it will just run. It is then when it's completed that element of the life cycle, it is running in a secured session on a dedicated server for it. And yeah, especially in that area, there would be, and I recall some of the questions, like you said, that are on the exam of when it gets to that stage and managing it. Let me get to that place. As it's uploaded back to the platform, pushed into production, and then managed from there. right after it's tested. So good. Well, I also want to transition. Let's touch over Salesforce a little bit too. We can't leave Salesforce out. And there's so much more to share about RPA, but Salesforce, we start with the element of Flow Builder. I like to call this, like, for those of us who remember flow charts, it's like flow charts on steroids, because it's not just a flow chart, it actually does the work, right? So there's quite a bit in here. Now, some caveats on the exam for this would be to be very familiar with your tool sets, your elements that you have in Salesforce Flow, as well as when you run a debug of your flow or you are testing it, it creates what is known as an interview. That term interview is really not even touched over very much in the course itself, but there are questions surrounding an interview. When I first took the exam, after taking the course, studying the course material, I'm like, what are they talking about? An interview. So, Kiru, do you want to share a little bit about what's an interview? Tell me what an interview is.
To be honest, I remember exactly also, Diane, that I also had this question, because I think there was also one or two questions in the practice exam. And you know how it was back then. We had this practice exam in trainings.mulesoft.com, and we never get the answers once you're done. So you just get the score, and then you run multiple times again and again, trying to figure out, okay, what did I do wrong? And this question was one such thing. I was struggling to understand what an interview is. And like you said, it was not at all in the course. At least from what I remember, an interview is when you run or when you test a flow. Then on the right-hand side, you get these cards, which is going to show you each and every step, how it ran, and the output of each step. So these cards are called interviews. And like Diane said, these are also very important part of the syllabus.
Yeah. It is. And we were like, where did that come from? I remember when I was meeting with my, when you are qualifying to teach for one of the MuleSoft classes, you have like a senior instructor that's coaching you, and he's a friend of mine. I'm like, what is this? And he's like, oh, I know, it's never even covered. So at any rate, yeah, we want you to be familiar with that. That's a big deal, correct? And so be watchful of that. And then these flows that we create can also be incorporated into the flow orchestration. Okay, so flow orchestration. Kira, you want to share a little bit about flow orchestration?
Yes. So with regards to flow and flow orchestration, the important things to concentrate for flows would be to understand the different types of flows. There will surely be one or two questions with regards to this. What is a record triggered flow? What is a screen flow, and so on. So this is super important to understand. And flow orchestration, here they might ask, there's always in the options always a flow and flow orchestration, and it's important to understand when to use flow orchestration and when to use flows. So flow orchestration we use when the flow or when our automation is going to span over multiple departments, right? So this is the keyword over here. If it spans across departments involving a lot of people, then we always use flow orchestration. But if it is a simple process, I don't know, like a small approval process or something, then just go for flows. But if it is going to cover a multi-department one, then it is always flow orchestration. This is the keyword over here.
And if you set up you can set up a developer account with Salesforce and do a developer org. There's a special way you can do that. It's developer.salesforce.com, I believe it is. So, but in here, what you will find, now this is our org. This is, something we're using, but in here, when you even have a developer org, you'll find that there are sample flows here, even while you're studying. I highly encourage you to get familiar with the different kinds of flows that there are. These are all showing auto launched or a screen auto launched. But if you go into, there's an orchestration. So that's an example of an orchestration flow that you could use. And when you go into something like this and just, hands-on studying around a little bit, you can see that it's structured differently than a flow. It's truly put in those stages, right? But there are decisions also. If I wanted to, like, this is a stage that has steps. So if we are looking at what these steps are, we can see that these steps are all part of that staging of this orchestration. And so you can choose if you want them to run in order, or you can let them run asynchronously, or you can also use what's known as an evaluation flow. Now, an evaluation flow is a type of flow that will return back a confirmation on something else that has occurred. That's covered on the exam. It's not in the curriculum. So spend some time to understand what an evaluation flow is and that it can manage your steps in an orchestration as well.
Yeah.
But, right. There's also different decisions you can do. You could do decision branching here. So there's many things you can do on the orchestration side here. Okay.
Yeah, just to add on. So yeah, Diane already described it. Is also important to understand the difference between a stage and a step. The stage is a bigger entity, and inside a stage there are different steps, right? And stages always run sequentially. Yeah? And steps can either be executed sequentially or simultaneously. This we can configure how it has to run. Yeah. You can see how that Diane is showing over here. So this is also important. And the steps can be of two types. There are interactive steps and there are background steps. So interactive steps always use a screen flow, as the name suggests, meaning it needs to interact with the user. So it needs to be a screen flow, right? A background step does not require user interaction. So it need not be, or it cannot be a screen flow. Yeah.
And this one has a lot more options because it's a CMS. You wouldn't see this in a developer account. You would only see the background, the interactive. And then I'm also seeing a MuleSoft step. Have you seen that one? A MuleSoft step?
No.
And I won't go, I don't think it's covered on the exam anyway, but the background step, as Kiru mentioned, is very important. That's got to be an invocable where you can invoke that flow. Interactive is going to be a screen flow. So because think of it, it's waiting and interacting back and forth there.
Yeah. Background step always runs an auto-launched flow in the background.
Auto-launch, yes, that's the term I was looking for. Thank you. Fill in my gaps. So you can see the different types of flows here, the auto-launch, the orchestration. If we were to start a new flow, and again, come out here hands-on with it and look at, the different types of flows, and you'll be able to see and really have an understanding. A lot of them you won't be asked about in the exam, but you do want to be familiar with a scheduled triggered flow, record triggered. Record triggered flows cannot be used in orchestration. It must be the auto launched or screen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then to round it up real quick, and we'll go into the final chapter of the Einstein chatbot. I do believe this, isn't it?
I also think so. Yeah.
It is on the exam right now. So you do want to be familiar. I would focus on, as you are working with this and going through the trails and on Trailhead, the terminology seemed to be something that came up about, like the menus. There's menus that you create for your chatbot to link to, follow through, the types of components that you can add here, whether it's, a message or a dynamic or static question. So again, it's kind of cool to see it get set up and do it. But at the same time, I think the few questions that are on here are going to be centered around terminology and how it links and works together. Kiru, do you have some things you'd like to share on that?
No, I think you have said all the important ones, Dan. Yeah.
Okay, sounds great. Well, we wanted to be sure that we covered some of the newer things also in the automation pieces. And that would be the IDP. And so this has been where really, I know Kiru and I have been spending a lot of time together. We've been both working with the pilot version of this. This is intelligent document processing. And so I'm going to give a preview, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kiru also to pick it up from here. But essentially what it is, what you're seeing here is the interface to configure your document action. And what the document action is going to do, give you the ability to come in here and create a configurable pattern for your documents that you have, PDF, JPG, to be scanned or managed through optical character recognition to extract data. So there are two, and more on the roadmap, two set types of document actions. Now, again, this is not going to be on the exam yet. Probably will be at some point. The invoice comes preset with fields that it's looking for. If you choose invoice, you can still ask generic questions in addition to the fields that are set here that it will be looking for on an invoice or a purchase order. In the generic category, though, and this is where we spent a lot of our time with, is to be able to ask it natural language questions. Okay, so if we do this and we go in there, oh, I already have one called that. Okay, another one. And we create this, it's going to tell us now we are using AI in this category, and we will be able to interact with the AI engine and therefore present our own questions, and they're called prompts. Kiru, I will let you take it from here. I'm telling you, in the project that I'm on, it's all about learning to write a prompt that's going to give you the data you need, right? So Kiru, go ahead. I'll let you take it from here. I'm going to set some things up.
Okay, done. So can I share my screen then?
Yeah.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Make sure if I do stop. Yep, there you go.
Okay, then let me quickly transfer it to my other screen. Yes. So can you see something?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Are you seeing my IDP screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Diane already explained that. So this is a platform where we can extract data from documents. And as she also explained that the different types of document actions that we can create. So if our document that we want to extract data from is either a purchase order or an invoice, then we can choose either of these. But if it is neither, then we go for generic. And the difference is that with invoice and purchase order, you have a standard set of fields that you can find, for example, in all invoices, like the invoice date or the invoice number, for example. Yeah. So this one is already configured for us, and the template is already available with these fields that will be always extracted when we choose an invoice. But if we go for generic, because it is a generic document, we have to extract all the needed data that we want using only prompts. And for this, now we have what is also GA is this Einstein, which is going to use an AI LLM in the background in order to extract from our natural language prompts all the data that we want to extract, right? So for example, let me create something. Or maybe we go for invoice, better.
Same name, maybe?
Yes.
That's what mine did. I had the same name.
Common problem. Okay, and because I chose now invoice, you can see all the standard set of fields here on the right hand side, yeah, and then the tables. So in every invoice, we will always have a table which is going to list the individual items and their prices and so on. So that is a standard table that we find in every invoice. So that is also here. And then finally, if we need some other data which is not covered by the standard fields, then we can configure our prompts over here. Now let me upload a sample invoice, and then we can see how it looks like.
I'm currently taking an AI prompt course with North Carolina Western University. And it's interesting. I just started, but I'm finding that I'll have to share some of the things I have learned from that already about prompt writing that I thought was really interesting when we get to that point.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we can see I ran the model, and you can see all the standard fields are extracted, right? So for example, the ship to address, and it's also like the street and it doesn't work 100% correct, of course, because it's a standard fields and all the invoices are of different formats. And that is why we have here also the prompts. So let me now show you, for example, if I go here, we can also see here the gray boxes, which are denoting the fields that were extracted in the standard fields, right? And we have here, for example, the order number, right, which is not covered in any of the standard fields. And we must then use a prompt to extract this. So in this case, so when we create a prompt, we give a name to the prompt, and then we here have to just ask what we want, right? So it depends on the complexity of what we want. Your prompts can be either small or large. So in this case, I think it will be pretty simple. So let's try the simplest one. What is the order number? Okay, and here we have the answer, and it's 000037. That was pretty easy to do, and it took like 1 minute. And you can also see that the confidence is like 100%. So this is one of the straightforward ones, but with prompts you can achieve a lot, because using this, it is basically low code, no code, right? So you just have to explain like how we have to do, I don't know, to a 5-year-old, for example, what we exactly want from the document, and it is going to fetch you more or less what you want if the prompt is really specific and describes exactly how the model should look for what we want, right? And this is basically it. And so now we also have extracted basically everything, and you can also maybe see here that the items table that is extracted, the individual prices, the quantity, the unit price, the description of the materials, the product code, and everything that was there here in this table, right? So in a matter of minutes, we have now extracted everything from the document. And what is also super interesting is this invoice that I've uploaded is a scanned PDF. It is not a machine readable PDF, right? You cannot select the text, for example. It is a scanned photo of a PDF. And with just normal OCR, it is super difficult to extract data out of such scanned and not machine readable documents. Yeah. And what is also very impressive is, for example, if I choose a completely different invoice, don't know if I have something else. Yeah, so this is another completely different invoice of a brewing company, right? And it has a completely different format than this one, right? But the same set of standard fields will also work for this invoice as well, even though it has a completely different format. And that is the impressive part of IDP, because you don't have to configure, for example, with every changing format of the document, a completely different configuration, for example. You can reuse what you created. If your invoice is standard enough, then you can just easily use the same configuration and just run multiple documents with completely different formats. This reduces your maintenance overhead drastically. Yeah? And once you have configured your fields and your prompts and everything, what you can do is you can publish your document action, and when done, it will be available as an API in AnyPoint Exchange. And after that, it is how you use any API in a Mule app. So you can use it as you use any normal API. It will be available as a connector in your Mule app, and you can send documents to it. And then you can get back the data that was extracted from the documents in a structured JSON format. And then with this JSON, you can just process it however you want automatically further. Yeah.
I have a quick question about some of the prompts you've done.
Yeah.
So on the previous invoice, you were looking for the order number,
Mhm.
and you retrieved
Yes.
that with a prompt. Now,
Yes.
on this document, let's say the order number is client reference, so that
Mhm.
previous prompt is no longer valid.
Yep.
So would you write a generic prompt that would address multiple documents, or would
No.
you? Okay, so you'd specify per document.
Exactly. In this case, I would write, for example, what is the order number? If there is no order number, return null. Yeah. So this would prevent the model to give any random information back, like how it was giving with a generic prompt, right? So this, it's very important, particularly when we are using AI and LLMs to set guardrails so that the prompt does exactly what we want. And it is very important to do this in order to prevent it from hallucinating and just giving us some information that we think is right, but it is not actually a part of the document, for example. Yeah.
Is there some mechanism to distinguish? So if it's unpredictable what document I'm going to get, is there some mechanism to distinguish that, or how would I go about that?
So if you're not sure about which document you're going to get, the first thing I would do is to classify the document. Yeah. So if you know, for example, there are like 10 different types of document that you're expecting to come in a certain inbox, right? And you know the differences between all these 10 documents. Then what I would first do is I would give a description in the prompt. I am expecting these type of documents, and you can identify these type of documents using this 2 or 3 sentences about each document. For example, if it is invoice, then I say from this company, then I would say, okay, this is an invoice from this company, it is type 1. Okay. Right? And that would be the first thing. And based on the type, then I would do the further prompts. So that would be my approach when we do not know what type of document we are expecting here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. And any other questions? Diane, do we still have time also to show the RPA side of it?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We're scheduled really, we've got a little bit of flexibility. I know it's on a lunch hour, but yes, I definitely wanted to share a lot of that as well. So as long as everyone's good, I think we normally run till about 1:30 Eastern anyway, but to be mindful of everyone's time, yes, share what you
honestly, it's Kiro and Francis who are into their Friday evening already.
I know, right? So
yeah.
That's all good, Ryan. Here it's daylight saving, and it's already like super dark at like 5 o'clock, so I have nothing better to do. So I love to spend my Friday evening muling. So
that's right. Where else would you be?
Exactly. So, okay. Now we saw the IDP part. So let's assume that we have now extracted all the information that we want from the document, and then we have published it so that it is available as an API in Exchange, right? And as we talked about earlier, with IDP, you can integrate it with anything you want because it's an API. So you can integrate it with a Mule app, or you can integrate it with an RPA bot, for example. Yeah. So now this here is a demo of how you can integrate it with an RPA bot. So with an RPA bot, you can send a file. For example, in this case, I'm going to, okay, here is my file explorer. So I am going to have here my working bucket, right? And here I'm going to put in an file. Yeah, this is just for the demo. If, for example, a productive case could be there is an email inbox where an invoice is coming as an attachment, right? And the bot is reading the email and downloading the attachments to this particular folder. Yeah. And then the invoices are available over here. And what I'm doing here in this demo is I am first identifying the type of invoice. This is similar to what we talked about earlier. And then according to the type of invoice I'm getting, I'm routing it to a different document action that I have created in IDP. Yeah. And then extracting all the data that I want out of it. So this is the part over here. And in RPA, if you search here in the toolbox IDP, you will see there are two important actions that you can do, right? So one is submit document to MuleSoft IDP, and the other one is retrieve results from MuleSoft IDP. So these are the two requests. This is the submit is the post request, and the retrieve is the get request. Yeah, and because RPA is low code, no code, it just needs configuration and not really any code, for example. So here, for example, is a submit. Here is execution ID. This is for identifying uniquely the document that we are passing to IDP so that we can retrieve the results later with the same ID. Yeah. And then here is the document action. This is the published API from IDP. And here you can also choose the version of the published API. So you can publish also multiple APIs with, I don't know, different set of prompts, for example. And you can choose also the corresponding version that you want to use. Yeah. And then here is the file path and the file name that we have to configure. And that's basically it. And then the credentials that you use for IDP. Yeah. So this is configured as a connected app in any point. So in your access management, you can create here a connected app. For example, this one here, and you just have to give these credentials over here in RPA so that RPA has access to use IDP. Yeah? So this is kind of a handshake between RPA and IDP. In order to do this, you always have to create a connected app, and then you have to give the corresponding credentials over here. And once done, once this action is executed, the document from this path and this name is going to be passed to IDP. And IDP is going to work in the background and extract all the information like how we have configured over here with our prompts, with the standard fields, etc. And once it is done, you can use the retrieve action here to use the same execution ID that we generated before. So that is the unique identifier for the document. And then the document action, again, the same one which I submitted to, and the version, yeah, and the same credentials. This would give as an output the JSON of all the extracted data from the document. Yes. So maybe I can now run quickly and then show you.
I have heard someone say, I won't mention their name, but they recommend if you're using IDP, you really should be using a bot for it. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I had not heard that point of view because of the way it manages it for you. But
yeah, it's running in my other screen, sadly. So
okay.
Yeah, but here is, I have put in some message box. So now the RPA bot has identified which working bucket it has to look at the documents in. And it has identified now, this is a message box, that there is one invoice. This is the same one that we saw before, the Polychem invoice. And now it is going to send the document to IDP. And then IDP is going to extract all the documents for us. And this is the message box from IDP saying that the document extraction has succeeded. Yeah. So this is a status. So if it is still in process, it will give us in progress back. If it is done, it is going to give us back succeeded. And if the confidence level, for example, is less, then it is going to give us manual validation required, meaning that some human has to look into the document and then check if everything is done correctly and then approve it in order for the process to proceed further. Yeah. And these are some of the, Ryan, you have a question?
Yes. Because I was thinking about hyperautomation and what Dan showed at the beginning. I maybe I missed it, or maybe I'm not. I think RPA is my weakest part of the user interactions in RPA. Tell me if I'm wrong. They're not that good, right? So I would probably like screen flows in Salesforce, right?
Yes.
So if I was going to get a screen flow in Salesforce, probably for a user interaction, for someone to check the quality of a document, I would probably want to fire off a platform event with the document. Can RPA do that, or is that better for? I think that seems like a Mule thing for me.
It is.
It is. So personally, I wouldn't do a wait in RPA bot because it's going to be very expensive, right? So for example, how I would handle this is I would do it in two parts. So if you're doing IDP with RPA, I would build two bots. So maybe the first one is just going to send the document to IDP, right? And then the second one is going to check whether a manual validation required is the status for this particular document. If yes, then it is going to, I don't know, not trigger for another hour or so until when the user has, finished reviewing it. Could be, yes. So once the review...
Wouldn't I want to run that with a flow or something to drive the bots from flow with a diagram?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. My suggestion is only when you're using like a legacy system where you have like no other option but for RPA. But the best thing here would be to use a Mule app where you send the document to IDP and then wait for IDP to extract it and have a callback URL, right? Where IDP is going to give you a ping when the extraction is done, and then you can just start with this so that you can do this.
If we want the user, we need something in Salesforce to pop up somehow, right? So we need
exactly. Yeah. So this would be the best approach. But if you only have to do with RPA, then I would build two bots to save as much cost as possible and not do it in one bot where you have to wait 1 hour with the bot.
Yeah. In fact, there is a strategy to not use the confidence level in the document action, because in your output, you do get the confidence level there. And so that it would not be snagged in the review status, but you could manage it in your logic in your Mule app. So that's another type of strategy also. But the review tasks are helpful. And Ryan, when you have a document action in review and you go to that review task and you have a user interface that says, oh, okay, well, I'm going to put the correct value. Do you have any in yours that is up for review?
Let me see. I have a lot, but it's, I guess, too old.
In here, you have to log into AnyPoint, right?
Right. You've got to have one account. Yes.
So if I'm a Salesforce org and all my users are logged into Salesforce, I would need to get those review tasks to show up in Salesforce.
Right. That's why we're managing, there is a strategy of managing them within the Mule app itself and saying, this is a confidence level low.
Yep.
You need to check this one out. We're going to boot it back into the exception list and then work that and double check why it's not up to a high standard for that. So, yeah. But once it is satisfied here as a review task, it proceeds with your webhook and all that. So it would actually, once someone comes in here to validate it, it would, be moving forward in the process. There's nothing else you have to do. It triggers to go. Yeah. Excellent. The other way of using it, that we have seen already in some of the demos and stuff like that is as a Mule connector, as an IDP connector in our Mule app. And I'm trying to launch Studio. Do you happen to have Studio up, Kiru?
Let me check. Diane, actually,
mine is
might have, but I need a minute to open it.
Okay, let me show.
It's always up, Diane, but I don't have any IDP actions in it right
I know.
Okay.
I know. Well, you should be able to search for one. But let me, while you're looking for that keyword, let me show you something real quick. In the no, don't do that. I'm learning these buttons on this platform. This is like the second time I've used this platform. I almost stopped the recording. Okay, so on what I have done is, by the way, Ryan, our account officially has Einstein. Okay, that's new. I just did it. So the beta, the GA of Einstein AI was, I guess, the 7th. But our accounts, you have to have it affiliated with a Salesforce org and your Anypoint platform org for that configuration to take place. And we had a hiccup with ours. It just got fixed. So we are officially running on Einstein AI. And what that means is when you're creating your prompts, you can actually put, instead of it, just like Kira was saying, you can ask it questions, and hers was already provisioned with the Einstein. This is one of the demos that I did for Dreamforce, was to, give it a document and just say, extract data from this document and identify what type of document it is and list the details in JSON format. So to answer your question, Hardy, how can you filter down what you're, accessing? You can say, what is on every page? And it can kind of give you an indication of what that page is, because it's looking at this 26-page document holistically. And so when I say what is actually in here, like the first thing I did a data dump, I want all the data that's on this document. So I copied the result. I already ran this because it takes it a little while. It's 26 pages. So I already ran it. And here I can see, I've gotten information in JSON format. And so if I run that through a JSON editor, just to make it a little easier to read, I can see that it found the document type as a resume. It pulled my information up. It's got my experience, my job experience. And as you go all the way down, you can see that it has pulled the information, including my certifications, different details here, education. So as we're looking at this, I just asked it, extract data from this document and tell me what type of document it is and give me the results. So it really took what I asked and built out quite a bit of a data, collection there. Then also here, what is the top 10? If I had, for someone who's, posted a job and you're filtering through a million, not million, but at least 100 maybe resumes. And as you're going through this, you can ask it, what are the top 10 talents this person has? Or do you, is this candidate hireable or undesirable? Give an explanation why you came to that conclusion. So you can even ask it thought-provoking questions. Not that I would say it's going to decide for me, but what I am going to say is, help me weed through these people. Is this, I could have posted the job description and I could have said, do they match this description? And it's not going to JSON it for me. Anyway, I didn't ask for that in JSON format, which is another thing I wanted to point out. So it did give me an answer. It did say that they're hireable and why. List the candidate certifications. And this one, and I asked for this output to be in JSON. So again, you could choose how you want your output to be.
I'm glad IDP thinks you're hireable. I'm just saying.
Ew.
Really? So, one of the interesting use cases I would like to look at. So the document type wouldn't change. Let's call it's all invoices, but it might be from 20 different companies, and they all use different keywords to describe the same attribute. So, and I'm going to be a problem child with Kiru later, because I want to go back at that. A Rails broke. A Rails didn't work. I was asking for the order number. It gave me the wrong value with a 91% confidence ratio. It should have returned a null, right?
Yes, that's because there's no guardrails. Yes, I can share again if you want. Maybe after Diane is done, and I'll show you the updated prompt, and then we see what is there. Yeah.
There's a spelling error that might have contributed to that. But if you look at something like, I'm asking someone to upload identification, they could be, and let's just look at the American states. There's 50 different types of identification, 50 different driver's licenses /IDs I could look at, right? The field's not sitting in the same place. The descriptions might be different. And to make sense of that identity for all 50 states in a way that is consistent.
It is, I mean, it depends on how different they are, right? So it needs to be tested. So we cannot tell for sure that it is going to work great for all 50 states, like without having to look at the documents and without having to test it. But at least from my experience, not with the IDs, but there was one customer where we were trying IDP for, and this was an energy company, and they were receiving a lot of documents, right? So they were receiving meter pictures, and they were receiving people who write about this is my meter reading, and they handwrite all these information in letters. Yeah, and there is also letters which is informing about change of tenancy of a building, and then to register it in a different name. So we saw particularly for all these the meter readings, the change of tenancy, and not the Zähler pictures. IDP did not work well for the sorry, I'm talking German, for the meter pictures. Yeah, for the meter pictures. Yeah.
The
Sorry.
previous result of senior was it as a consequence of a spelling error?
The previous result of you mean the confidence and the order number?
Previously, it gave the voucher number with a 91% confidence.
Exactly, because I did not give this part of the prompt previously.
You had it typed. Oh, maybe you didn't execute it because you had it typed.
No,
in, but
I
maybe...
didn't execute. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
It
gotcha.
will never.
Right.
It will never. So, for example, if I remove this, then it will give me a random number that it thinks is the order number, and that is why it is like super important to give it like guardrails. You know, so
yes.
if there is nothing, please do not return me a random value, but give me null. See, now it is giving me a value because we did not specify that it might not.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I saw that you typed in the rail, but obviously it wasn't executed. So I was
I didn't execute it. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, cool.
You're right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
True. You can even what we're finding, because we're in the healthcare. The project I'm currently on is in healthcare, and so we're finding that certain types of documents come in various shapes, various layouts, so what we're like drilling down and actually doing like a filtering process in the prompt. For example, I'll use the state driver's license as an example for you. Or even, it could be relevant to an invoice. And the approach would be to say that, extract the order number on this. If it's company such and such, then it might need to be viewed as the whatever else it might be called, the registration number or something like that. So it might have a different term. We're having to take terminology and saying that, we're looking for, like in the healthcare, we're looking for a specific value for a test result. It might be called this or this or this or this, and so then that it makes the prompts very complex, but it's actually telling the AI component, what they may be, what to look for on various types of pages. So it's an art. It's a real art. My biggest tip on prompting that I learned from this class, I've only had one session in the class so far, but it was my aha moment. It is to use ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, I'm creating a prompt. I need to extract this data. How would you write that prompt? And so I'm actually reverse engineering it to ask, it's almost like it's its own language, right? So I want to speak in AI lingo. And that was and the other thing was in that whole, in my question to ChatGPT, also say, ask me questions that will make this more specific. And so it came back with, detailed questions for me. And then it created the prompt. That was like very cool. And it really actually solved a challenge we were having.
For hyperautomation, so Einstein has an LLM, right? And there's a way to trigger that from flow. So, and from Agentforce. So I think that flow, like there's an architectural way to design that flow where the output of IDP is the input to a prompt.
Correct.
And then the output of that prompt is what we use at the next step of the flow. So you have to design a chain.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hence hyperautomation, right? The automation pieces of them, all the components coming together for that. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, especially with the AI, Einstein AI just GAing, and there's so much to learn around this. There's so much to really build as a solution. None of this is exam relevant. It's not going to be on the exam right now, but
Even
it
IDP,
is,
yeah.
yeah. But
Mhm.
I'm excited we have it on our platform now, Ryan. Woohoo. So yeah.
So I have been wanting to share a customer story here.
Yes.
I work with Salesforce as a customer success manager, and I've been wanting to give this hyper automation exam since a while. But because I don't do a lot of hands-on, it's mostly their experiences. And I tried IDP with Einstein a while back, and before that, we were just trying to utilize IDP. And what I learned with Einstein with IDP that it gives very like extraordinarily better results. So yeah, so the way their documents were, they were using codes, and those were not the ones which we have like right now, invoices and yeah, right. So those codes, and the way their tables were, they were like structured really bad.
Mhm.
And like they had a serial number in one of those, and then product quantity, everything was was a mess. Like somewhere it was in one line, somewhere like we used to leave two lines and then go ahead and then do it again. So but it worked with Einstein way
Yeah.
better. And
Yes.
Oh
when
yeah.
we talked about the JSON prompts, so we tried that. I learned about it from the product manager here, that okay, we can do this in Einstein with IDP. Okay, this is really new. So yeah, it is really wonderful. And even the JSON prompt which you mentioned, that was like a simple one, but we can write a lot around it, like
Yes.
to complicate.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
That
exciting,
is
isn't it? It's
true.
very
Yeah.
exciting.
It
Yeah.
is. And another cool thing is, like I mentioned, we in one of the customers' documents there was these letters, and in those letters there's addresses, and they write almost in many cases the address wrong. Yeah, and in the prompts we even gave a prompt saying that if you find, I don't know, the postal code is correct and the city name is not matching with the postal code, then please correct the city name to the one that is matching to the postal code. And the model did that just great. So it
Wow.
not just extracts stuff from the document, it can also do more on
Yeah.
it.
Correct it.
Yeah,
That's very
exactly.
cool. I had not thought
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
How,
Yeah.
how did we do that? Using IDP itself?
Yeah, just in the prompt, just mention that if the postal code is not matching with the city, then please make sure that the city name is matching with the postal code, and it is a city existing in this particular country, for example. And then it worked perfectly well. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. We got to do more of these. Hey, we
Yeah.
are brewing. We are working on a Women Whom You'll Meet Up, right?
Yes.
In Kiru is the meetup leader in the UK. And so be watching for that. We're looking at some dates, and we're going to have to dive into this more. We also will do some more study groups along this, because we're all learning. This is how we learn. We can share. So we'll be doing repeats on this topic, especially. And, the more, now that we really have our own version too, I've kind of been really careful on the other platforms that have Einstein AI on it. So I've kind of been a little bit cautious, but now wide open, we have it on ours. So we can really work with it more. So, but yeah, integrating between the different platforms, I think there's a lot there. The hyperautomation exam does not cover using a platform event, but I really think that that's the integration way of really moving the data from IDP over into into Salesforce orgs. Is that pretty much what you have seen, Kiru, on that?
Yeah, Diane. Yes, that's true. Yeah. Nothing more to add. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you all so much. Any questions or comments before we wrap for the day? This This has been great, Kiru. Thank you for
It
joining
was
us.
really great. I
Yeah.
have a lot of customer
Yeah.
stories kind of and how we are implementing the hyper automation. So we don't have a lot of customers who are working with hyper automation, and I have only one which I know right now. So yeah, it is
Where are you based?
Toronto.
Okay, Toronto.
Mhm.
Excellent, excellent. Who do you report to?
Nikolai,
Nikolai. Okay.
you know him?
I don't think that I do. I've heard of his name in working with oh goodness. In with some of the SEs and stuff like that,
Okay,
and just helping out in a lot of those areas. So it's really Justine. I've worked a lot with Justine, in
Australia.
working with the solution engineers. So
fine.
yeah.
In
I'm
Toronto, do you know Stuti Tank?
Yeah, I met her.
Awesome.
So Connect AI, I think Connect AI, or there was some
Yeah,
we
yeah,
went.
she's one of our MuleSoft mentors in your area. Not
Oh,
part of
Alex also. Alex is
Oh
in.
yeah, Alex. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I met Alex and Suti that day for the
Mhm.
first time.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, more to come. Let's do this. Let's, and if you would like to be co-host or share, at either the study groups or meetup, likewise, Hardy, let us know. We'd love and Shauna's with us. Shauna's one of our superstars.
Dana.
I'm sorry. I still am pronouncing it wrong, aren't I?
Because you're reading it, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody. Do we have any wrap slides? I don't think if we have put anything together.
I didn't have it. No, I already took it down. So, but yeah, if you check out, we do have,
We try to do these more than once a month. We were doing every 2 weeks for a while. Through the holidays, we'll see. but yeah, we try to do another way. They're usually on Fridays. And just keep an eye on our study group website and LinkedIn, And if you have a request for one or somebody gets excited and you want to come in here and kind of lead one, just DM Diane or me and we'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen for sure. For
All right.
sure. Yeah. So thanks so much. And those of you watching on the recording, be sure to give us a comment on any questions you might have likewise, and be glad to hear your feedback. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Kiru, for hosting with me, co-hosting. Always a pleasure.
It was amazing, Diane. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yep. See you all soon. Have a great weekend. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.